So bridging finance is basically a lending tool used by the buyer to lend a certain amount of money to be able to buy an investment property before the renovation's done, and then they move on to a different product, either sell a property or move on to a buy-to-let product. It's usually used on a property that's unmortgageable, so a house that's completely derelict, like the one that we have bought. Typically, in bridging finance, they charge you 1% per month, something like that. But it sounds high, but I think it's a fantastic tool, and I'm going to tell you why. If you are good at what you do, and you can get the renovation and the remortgage done in quick succession, in quick time, let's say 4 months, then you only pay for the time that you have the loan. So if you have a bridging loan for 4 months and you charge it 1% per month, you're only actually going to pay back 4% of what you've borrowed. So if you can get the renovation done and you can move on to a buy-to-let product quickly, it actually doesn't turn out very expensive at all. Where it can get expensive is if you get trouble with the build and it takes much longer than what you anticipated, or some people I've seen use bridging and the exit strategy is to sell. Now, I definitely wouldn't recommend that. It's probably for another video, but the reason for that is selling a property takes so long and so many things can go wrong, and you can be at the end of the conveyancing and a buyer pulls out, and then you have that bridge potentially for 12, 15 months, and that's when the costs come, and basically that's when all the profit from the deal goes. But if you do it right, it's a fantastic tool, but you do have to know when to use it and how to use it. So the first thing that I have learned on this particular bridge, on this particular house, is to always have a very competent broker. Now, we used 2 brokers in this case. The first broker came recommended to us, and he secured us a 75% LTV, loan to value, and that would have been fine for us if the valuation had come back at what we thought. However, the valuation came back from the first valuation much lower, and because we were only getting a 75% loan to value and nothing else, it meant that the money that we had, we actually didn't have enough money to fund the deal. So the lender said, no deal. The broker didn't give us any other options. He just said, the deal's dead, it can't be done. And we're like, okay. We then went to another broker who was a friend of a friend. We told him the situation, and he said, what you need is a lending company that's willing to lend you the money up front, but then also give you development finance to do the refurb. That's exactly what he found for us. Found us someone that was willing to give us 75% of the purchase price up front, but then also fund the development. So they give us £40,000 to do the entire refurb. So the lesson in that was, don't give up on it, but find a broker that will find solutions to the problem. And if we'd have listened to that first broker, we'd have just left it and gone away. But I knew that someone would know how to do it out there. So find yourself a competent broker, someone that's willing to fight for you and actually find solutions, because it's the difference between the making or the breaking of a deal. And potentially we would have lost £50,000 to £60,000 of profit in this house if we'd have listened to that first broker. So the lesson there was, keep going, keep trying, find a broker that will make it happen, because not all brokers are the same, and not all brokers have the access to the different lenders out there. That's something that I really wasn't that aware of until we did this. So find a broker that will fight to get the deal done. So the second thing that I have learned from this particular bridge is to be prepared for surveys. And when I say be prepared for surveys, I mean you yourself having evidence and documented works to give to whatever it might be, the valuer if they're coming to value the property, or the surveyor if they're coming to survey potential structural damage, or whatever it might be. And what I mean by this, and I can give you the example of what we did, in our first valuation, we didn't get any documents to give to the valuer. The valuer come, he undervalued it because it looked so bad. He said it was going to cost £70,000 to get it fixed from a reputable builder. And we were like, and it kind of blew the deal out of the water. The second time around, our broker said to us, okay, for the valuation, can you get your builder to go around? Can you get him to write a detailed list of works that are happening and how much he's charging you for those works? So we did that, and that made a huge difference to the valuation. So having your documents and telling a valuer or a structural engineer exactly what we know that this problem is here, but this is how we're going to fix them, and this is how much we're going to cost, and here's our builder to prove that. So being prepared for surveys is massive, because again, it makes or breaks the deal. It would have broke that deal in the first situation. In the second time that we did that, it made such a difference in terms of valuation. I think they valued it £40,000 higher than the first one. So that made a huge difference for us. So the third tip, not the third thing I've learned because I knew this beforehand, but the third tip that I have for using bridging finance is make sure that you have a competent solicitor. Now, we all know that we need a competent solicitor in whatever work you're getting done, whether that be, it doesn't matter. We know that we need a competent solicitor, but what I mean is make sure that you do your research on if that solicitor is fit to do the bridging finance part, because we approached solicitors and we went with a solicitor, and she told us that she'd done bridging finance before and it would be no problem, but once we got into it, it became quite clear that she had not done lots of bridging finance and she was really out of the depth with it. And it actually got to a point where I was researching stuff and speaking to the broker, and I was telling her how things worked. And because she didn't seem to know what she was doing, she kind of just ignored emails from the lenders, and it held things up so much. Now, something that I have learned from this process is that a solicitor should charge quite a hefty fee for taking on the bridging loan part, because it's so much extra work for them. Now, this solicitor that we used, she didn't add a fee for taking this bridging loan through for us, which is a massive red flag. Now I see it. At the time, I didn't really understand it. At the time, I thought £500 that the other solicitors were charging to take us through this bridging loan was a rip-off. Now I've been through the process, if a solicitor came to me and didn't charge for the bridging loan, I'd be like, they haven't done this before, they don't know how much work's involved here, so I would not go with them. So that fee that a solicitor charges for bridging loan is actually not a bad thing. Don't skimp on those fees, because that means that they understand how much work is involved in it, which is a lot. Might be a little bit of extra noise in here because we've got a jungle growing out here and the trees are just bouncing off the roof. But the fourth thing that I learned from this bridging process, or I'm learning from this particular bridge, is to get your remortgage set up and started as soon as possible. The idea of a bridge is to come off it as quickly as you can, because you're on high interest, so you want to get off that and you want to get that remortgage sorted. So we are in the stages now where we are talking to our broker, and he said to us, 2 weeks before the work is due to be completely finished, before the house is ready for rental, then we need to start the process. That's because it takes 2 weeks from starting the application to the valuer actually coming to the property. So we want the valuer coming to this property the day after or the week of this house being completely finished. So don't wait until a house has been renovated and then go and try and find a tenant and then start the remortgage process. Your aim is to get off that bridge as quickly as possible. So start the remortgage process 2 weeks, speak to your broker, it might be a little bit different, but speak to your broker and start it as fast as possible so that when this house is finished and it's ready for rent, that valuer is in here, the remortgage valuation, they're in here, they've done it, they get it ticked off, and that remortgage can be started as quickly as possible. That's going to save you some money. So would I recommend bridging finance? I absolutely would, but you need to make sure that there's enough money in the deal to cover different finances, the bridging costs, surveys, etc., etc. So it is a great tool. However, it does come with, in my opinion, unnecessary bureaucracy, lots of paperwork, lots of different things that really it's just unnecessary. However, it's a necessary evil if you haven't got the means to buy the property. We are trying to move on, and we are trying to bring investors on board with us so that they can lend money into our deals. They can earn high interest, much higher interest than any bank will give them. They lend us the money so we don't have to go through that unnecessary bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff. And they can also, if an investor is lending us money, they're welcome to come around and see exactly how we do this, how we buy the properties, how we speak to estate agents, how we find off-market deals, all the way through to the refurb, all the way through to how we finish with either selling the property, which I wouldn't do on a bridge, or what we do is remortgage them, and how that all works. So if you are sat there and you are wanting to get into something like this, but you don't have the money to do one yourself, but you have at least £25,000 that you'd like to invest with us, that we can then use to go and buy properties, we give you a high interest rate, and we also take you, show you how things work. You can call us, you can ask us questions, so it's kind of an earn and learn system. If that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, then just give us a message on Instagram and we can jump on a call, we can walk through exactly how that might work. And yeah, that'd be great. If there's people out there that want to do that, then let us know. Thank you for watching the video, and we will see you in the next one.